Hey guys, this is Blake Helfman. I'm here with Josh Merwin, River Oaks Chrysler Jeep Dodge and Ram. We are super excited about the partnership that Josh and I have put together. Houston International Sports Film Festival. Tell us a little bit about the Sports Film Festival, Josh.
Yeah, so it's a one-of-a-kind sports film festival in Houston, June 3rd through 6th of 2021. We're not only going to have sports films that relate to life, we're going to have sports activities for kids to get them outside again. So I'm really excited to have Sophia Herzog here. We're going to interview her for the Houston International Sports Film Festival's interview series. Sophia, why don't you start off just telling a little bit about yourself and your background?
My name is Sophia Herzog, and I'm a 2016 Paralympic Silver medalist, two-time world champion, and five-time world medalist. And I'm currently training for the Tokyo 2021 Paralympic Games this summer.
Cool. I guess we can start there. How has COVID affected you and your training and moving the Olympics back? And
Yeah, I think we were one of the biggest sports to be swimming is to be affected by COVID and the pandemic is because all of our rec centers or colleges, wherever swimmers trained, closed down for a period of time. And swimming's a really hard sport to mimic outside of the pool. And outside of swimming, it's you can't really do it without swimming. So a lot of us were like fish out of water. We couldn't do our sport at all. That really affected. I was out of the water probably for about 4 months right off the bat in the springtime. And then all last year was kind of spotty because my pool's owned by the city. So every time the city numbers went up, my pool would close. So that was a big challenge of trying to figure out how to train as consistently and as efficiently as I could.
Yeah. So where do you live? Do you live in Denver? Are you in Colorado Springs? Where are you?
I live in Salida, Colorado, about 2 hours out of the Springs, 3 hours out of Denver, up in the
Okay.
mountains.
Okay. Cool. Nice. And that's where you're from originally. Kind of tell us about your as a
Yeah.
child. How'd you get
Um,
into swimming? What kind of sports did you play? Kind of.
yeah, I was born in a smaller town called Fairplay, Colorado, and I there was no swim team. I was the first kid to go through the school district with a physical disability.
Oh
And
wow.
then I graduated high school a year early and moved to the Olympic and Paralympic Training Center in Colorado Springs and trained there for 6 years, um, leading into the Paralympic Games in 2016. And then 2 years after that, and then I moved to Salida. Just I needed a change in my training and grow up a little bit and change the scenery and switch it up for my training.
Cool. Does your family live in Slider? Or are they back in Fairplay?
They actually retired and slid it,
Okay.
and they were the ones who found this my coach now. Um, so that was the big pull
Gotcha.
to go there.
Cool. Um, I mean, it's interesting that you said you're the first person to go through the school district with a physical disability. That's pretty shocking, right?
Yes, it was definitely wild. So it was a huge learning curve for a lot of people of trying to figure it out. I lived in an old mining town, so our actual schoolhouse was piece of ancient history or a historic landmark. So they actually couldn't tear it down or do much modifications to it since it's a historic landmark. So it was more me needing stools or figuring out
Gotcha.
what bathrooms worked for me and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I guess when was the first time you knew you were different
I
that
knew
you can remember?
Yeah, I knew pretty early just because I'm an only child and both my parents are average height.
Okay.
Um, and then my parents immersed me in LPA, which is Little People of America, really early. So I had a great community of friends that were just like me. And then, so I was pretty aware pretty early on that I was different.
Yeah. Well, you say where were the LPA? Were there people living near you, or did you have to travel? How did
Yeah.
that work?
So we have chapter meetings every month. So
Okay.
that's the whole chapter of Colorado, and we get together
Okay.
usually in the city. And then every year we do a national event. So that moves throughout the country. and the whole nation is able to get together.
And these events, what are they? Are they based around sports at all, or is it just what do you kind
At
of?
nationals, there's sports. It's called DAAA, so Dwarf Athletic Association of
Okay,
America, and we're able to play sports, but usually just in the chapter, it's more social. So,
social.
like going to the zoo, having a
Cool,
picnic, just something to see some friends.
cool. Um, so I guess how do you feel that your disability has helped you in life?
I wouldn't be where I am swimming or career-wise if it wasn't for my dwarfism for sure. So I think that was a big part, and it also taught me just at a young age that I had to work really hard for anything I wanted, just to prove myself. I'm considered a minority being a female and disabled, so I'm constantly having to work really hard just to prove that I'm on an even playing field than everybody else.
Or ahead of them a little bit. I mean, you did graduate early from high school, right?
Yes. Yeah, that was a challenge.
Yeah. Um, so did you go to college after high school?
I did. So DeVry University has a partnership with Team USA,
Oh, cool.
and DeVry is an online school. So I did online. I got my bachelor's in business communication online throughout about 4 years, training for while I was training.
Training, cool. And then, so I mean, I guess is your full-time job swimming now? What do you have a job
Yeah,
as well? Like, how does that
yeah, so
work?
I'm still full-time swimming. Back at home, I swim 9 times a week with 3 times in
Okay,
the gym. And then I'm expected to recover about 3 to 4 hours a day in between. So my whole day is
okay.
full. And it's really nice to just be able to focus on swimming and do every move I make throughout the day is based off
Geared
of
towards
my
that.
training.
Cool. And so
So
I mean, how are you funded? Are you funded by the Paralympic,
yeah,
US Paralympic Committee, or how does that work?
so I'm on the national team, so I get a monthly stipend through them.
Okay.
And then I live with my partner, who I'm lucky enough has a good job and majority funds me through my
Okay.
training.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. That's great. Um, all right. So what questions am I not thinking to ask you that I should be asking you? Or is there anything you want to talk about just with the upcoming Olympics and just life in general and kind of how sports, I mean, I guess when did you get introduced to swimming? You may have covered it a tiny bit, but what was your introduction to swimming like?
Yeah, I was actually a skier growing up, pretty
Okay.
competitive, just living in Colorado. That's something you
Yep.
gotta do. And then I have pretty bad knees with my dwarfism. So my knees were starting to get worse as I was a kid. And my mom didn't want me to have knee replacements, when
Yeah.
I was in high school. And they didn't actually have skiing as a classification yet for dwarfs. So I knew some dwarfs that were actually high caliber swimmers. So I went to a swim meet that was luckily enough in Colorado at the Olympic and Paralympic Training Center. And I competed in that. And that was my first meet. And it's been history ever since.
Did you win the meet?
No, and I
Okay.
remember I was a kid. I was probably like 8 years old, and I was with my mom, and I was like, "What do you think it's gonna happen if I win it?" And my mom's like, "You're not gonna win this meet, Sophia." And
Yeah.
I was like, "I could." She's like,
Yeah.
"No," and
That's
I was
funny.
dead last.
Okay. But fell in love with the water.
Yeah, it was definitely a sport I loved, and being able to meet new people through it, it's been a really good journey.
Cool. Um, okay, and so I don't know how they already had trials for swimming for the US. So are you for sure going? What's the kind of setup for
So
21?
we have, since of the pandemic, kind of, they
Yeah.
made it into 2 trials. So
Okay.
I'm actually at the first trials here now, and
Okay.
then our second and final trials is in Minneapolis in June, and that's where the team will be named.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Um, let's see. So did either of your parents, were they athletic? Did they swim? What was their
Yeah,
kind of?
my dad was a ultra marathoner, and my mom was a mountain biker.
Okay.
So
Cool.
no swimmers, but
Yeah.
I grew up in an athletic family.
Nice. Um, I guess were most of your friends through LPA when you were growing up as a kid? Do you have friends in school? Like how did that, and how did swimming You said you were eight when you started swimming?
Yep. On a club team, yeah.
Club team, yeah. How did kind of that lead you to building friendships?
Yeah, so I actually didn't have a ton of friends growing up in school. So most of my friends were actually on the swim team because I swam for a different school, and then through LPA. And then opening this world up of Paralympics, and then I made a whole new
Yeah,
community of friends.
that's awesome. And the swim team you were on, was it was a mix of people? Was it able-bodied and
It was
LPA?
all able-bodied.
Okay, it was all able-bodied. Okay, cool, awesome. That's great. Um, what athletic achievement are you most proud of? I mean, it's probably an easy question.
Yeah, probably the 2016 Paralympic silver medal.
Yeah.
Hopefully I can recreate a podium finish again in Tokyo, so that's the dream.
Yeah. Are there any, I mean, obviously you're involved with LPA, are there any other causes or ways people can kind of learn more about dwarfism and learn more about supporting athletes like yourself, or kind of, I mean, one of the things we're trying to do is, partner with athletes that have causes so we can either fundraise or spread the word. Like my film, the way this started is I've got a film on a University of Texas baseball player that had a kidney transplant. It won the College World Series. It was way back in like 2005. Got drafted by the Reds in 2006. Was going to sign. His doctor said, "Don't sign. You have to have your transplant." So he didn't sign. His dad was a kidney donor. His dad had played pro ball when he was younger. And then, so obviously with my film, making a big push for organ donor awareness. So are there any ways that just the general public can get involved and, support either you specifically or just, people in general and learn more about what you've gone through?
Yeah, not particularly in that aspect of um since we're dwarfs, we're born with this. But just being aware of dwarfism, and just being kind. I think the world needs a lot more of that.
Yeah.
Being, like I go through a grocery store and I'll have a whole list of grocery items, and I'll walk out with half of a list because I can't reach it, and
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask somebody or nobody's in the aisle, whatever it may be. But I'm also part of two other foundations, which is really cool, called Classroom Champions, where it pairs Olympians and Paralympians into Title I schools. And we give the baseline of like life skills. So diversity, perseverance, goal setting, not academics stuff that you learn that. So
Yeah.
I'll talk about diversity and how it's in my life and why it's a good thing. And then they have to tell me what their diversity is, where they see it, and how it's strengthening their community. That's just one example of one of the lessons.
Cool.
And then I'm also part of Women's Sports Foundation, so closing the gap in male to females in sports and equal pay, and just getting the word out of sports for the female population.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's, going back to your grocery store story. I mean, how often do people just volunteer to help and ask if you need help?
I noticed with the pandemic, it's not more of people aren't volunteering. There's less people usually in the grocery store anyway now.
Yeah.
So that's been my biggest challenge, is there's just not the population.
I mean, I'm surprised that grocery stores don't have I mean, I guess you could ask an employee, right,
Yeah.
if you needed to, but I guess maybe if they set up some sort of system where it was probably easier, where it's less off-putting for you to go ask somebody, and more of a system of like, you need assistance, that could be an interesting thing.
And I even, because I'm 24, and I just moved, on my own with my partner. So this is like figuring it out. And we have a LPA page on Facebook, and, I put it on the page of like, how does everybody grocery shop? Like, what's the way people do it? Because I also can't reach in like the big Walmart carts. Like I can't, like if I drop something in there, I can't take it back out. So like, what do people do? And 90% of the responses where they do the pickup. So somebody.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. You order it ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah, I live in a too small of a town for our grocery stores to do that.
Yeah.
But so just finding, more adaptability, more accessibility, in that kind of aspect.
Yeah. But I mean, you have a car, are you able to drive? You have a car that's
So
been
I have
modified so you can,
pedal extenders.
okay.
So they're pedals that just clamp onto the normal pedals that I use.
Oh, cool. Sorry, my dog was making weird noises. You okay, Houston? Did you just get sick? I'll check in a minute. Cool. Have there been any sports films on any athletes with dwarfism that you know of?
No, we're a rarity.
Yeah, I mean, are there any kids' books that relate to just?
No, and that's the thing is I've thought about writing like a children's book with dwarfism because there's so many books, children's books specifically out there of, like a little amputee girl or a blind girl or someone in a wheelchair, and Barbie came out with, I think, an amputee Barbie, and
Yeah.
which is super cool. And like I'm such a minority even in this disabled world. Like it'd be really fun for people to see dwarfs out there, like a little girl
Yeah.
dwarf book or a little girl a dwarf doll or something like that. Because our big thing as dwarfs is like I sat next to a little girl on the plane coming here, and she was probably like 5 years old, and she was so mind boggled that I was her size and I was 24 years old and I was traveling by myself. So just, being able to switch that in kids' heads.
Yeah. Well, kids are amazing, right? Because they don't. I mean, they will look and stare, but it's not. I mean, they're not born prejudiced to anything, right?
Yeah.
It's just, right. It's just
They're just
they're
trying to
interested in
figure
learning.
it out.
Yeah.
So
All right. Well, I mean, I'll follow up with you because so one of the things we're doing is, I don't just want it to be like a 4-day event. I want it to be year-round programming. So we started this interview series as part of that, and then we've got this guy Robert Bodwin, who's one of my friends, whose dad had a double lung transplant, which is how I got to know him through the organ transplant community. But he was Clutch, the Houston Rockets mascot, for 20 years. He created him, and then was him, and then retired from that several years ago and started a new mascot, his own mascot called Newton, the Smart Dragon. And Newton goes to kids' schools and now virtually reads to them. It's one of the things we're doing as a weekly reading series, releasing on Saturday or Sunday every weekend. But I think there's a lot of stories to be told with athletes, for kids.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing is, I loved my childhood and I wouldn't take anything back, but just knowing, like there's another dwarf
There's other people
girl
out there. Yeah.
Swimming, it doesn't have to be swimming, it could be music or just something, just having that kind of connection of that would have been really good.
Yeah, I mean, even I have 3.5-year-old twins. I have boy and girl twins, and it just, what stories are they reading, right? I went to just moved into a new house and got them out of the crib, so now they're in beds. And I went to Target and got Minnie Mouse. I love Mickey and Minnie Mouse, so I got Minnie Mouse sheets and a blanket for my daughter Samantha. And then for Jack, I was looking for Mickey Mouse stuff. They didn't have anything. I went to Pottery Barn Kids, and they did. It was 3 times the price, but it was still, when I got it. But they had a series of all these kid books, and they're very diverse in terms of the topics. And one of them was like called Happy that Pharrell had written. There's another one called I Got Next, which is, this is just the cover. But so I'm trying to read books to them that are about more diverse people. There's one about Althea Gibson that I read to them. And then they're at school with a hugely diverse group of kids, and it's cool to see them, like, they're just friends with them.
They're normal.
Yeah.